right, Operation Take Back Our Town is fully underway. I've got an update in just a moment. However, is it time to expand Operation Take Back Our Town across the state and maybe all the way back to Washington, D.C.? I had a conversation this morning with a staffer at Senator Mark Begich's office. I called up the friend who had sent me an email. She'd sent me an email with the encouragement to please call Mark Begich's office, Senator Begich's office, and just discuss, if I wished to, discuss my frustration with Obamacare, or Begich Care, Affordable Care Act, with the news of what's been happening in Alaska to Alaskan policyholders, in addition to share my own story. And that's what I attempted to do. And I get on the phone with what can be described only as a very snarky staffer, and maybe didn't mean to be. And I don't know, could be an Alaskan working back there, could be a perpetual Washington, D.C., political aide. I don't know. But I do know that this guy was spinning so fast, I thought he was going to turn into butter. I really did. I've never heard such political spin. You hear about it all the time, right? I mean, we face it locally to a certain extent. But this was over the top. I just thought, man, I can't believe I'm hearing this. Words matter. This is what I said to the young man. I said, words matter. You just called it a penalty. Earlier, you called it a fine, and then you called it a fee. It's been described and decreed from the highest court in the land as a tax. I know it wasn't sold that way. I'm talking about Obamacare. I'm talking about Obamacare Care, Affordable Care Act. Was not sold as a tax, and specifically was not a tax. We were told it's not a tax. George Stephanopoulos stepped on all of us. Remember that? His nickname used to be George Stephanopoulos during the Clinton years. Anyway, he just about got lasered through Barack Obama's eyes when he said, well, this is a tax. And he said, excuse me, George, that is not a tax. This is when we were being sold Obamacare, Begich Care, Affordable Care Act. Then it goes to the highest court in the land, and of course we argued that it is a tax. So anyway, I'm talking to Senator Begich's aide, and I'm so frustrated. So frustrated. Well, to balance that frustration out with something more positive, of course, I had this program to look forward to and coming together here with you today on Alaska Matters. By the way, I'm Chris Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier, along with David Webb, who is engineering this program from the mothership of KGTL AM 620 and FM 100. Working very hard, as always, is Mr. Webb. Soon, just a side note here, soon you'll be tuning into a different radio station to hear this very program. We'll go into that in a little bit. But so I'm talking with Senator Begich's assistant, and I'm frustrated. I'm feeling like he's not listening to me. He's placating to me. He's talking down to me. Sir, sir, whenever you're talking to a politician and they smirk, and I could hear him smirking through the phone and the way he said, sir, and because my point was, to this aide, I said, what next? What will be decreed from the highest court or the highest office in the land that if we don't buy this personal product, this private product, if you don't buy that, you'll be taxed? What's next? Sir, whatever the law allows. Oh, I'm going out of my tree. I can't believe this. So what do? I pick up the phone and I call Joe Miller. Joe says, Chris, I'll be on the program at 1 o'clock. So Joe Miller, publisher of Restoring Liberty and U.S. Senate candidate, will be here at 1 o'clock. We'll be talking about the impacts of Begich Care on Alaskans. What can you do about it? What can you do about it? Operation Take Back Our Town. Now, in the Homer News, we'll get into that article in a little bit later into our local news segment, but Ken Kastner made a really good point. Now, Ken Kastner is the gentleman that has proffered and begun the petition for home rule. The question, shall Homer become a home rule city? He said, there's not much I can do about the frustrations and discontent with what's happening in D.C., or even for that matter down in Juneau. I can do something about what's happening in my backyard, in my hometown. And that's what I invite you to do. Get vocal and act local. I'm going to bring you in a little bit an update on the Homer sewer situation. 3 homes, as you know, this spring were flooded with city sewerage. I've got a new insight as to why the city administration and council feel so confident in waging battle in court against you, the homeowner. All that and more coming up here on what my mom calls the greatest show on earth. You're listening to Alaska Matters Radio. I'm Christopher Story along with David Webb. We are coming to you live today from the corner of West Hill and the Sterling Highway, the home of the Story Productions team and all things prosperous and possible. So in just a moment, I'm going to bring you an update on the city of Homer sewerage back up into three people's homes. But first, I wanted to start with a positive note. And in fact, this is the exact way I intended to open the program. By the way, the website, adventurealaskaradio.com. AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. During the program, you're welcome to weigh in at any time. This is an interactive program. I'm without a call screener today, but you may text me at any time, fire at will, 299-7653. Texts only, please. 299-7653. Persistence. According to Napoleon Hill, I wanted to read just briefly from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I talked about this book last week. Persistence is a state of mind. Therefore, it can be cultivated. Like all states of mind, persistence is based on definite causes. Among these are the following: definiteness of purpose. Definiteness of purpose. Knowing what one wants is the first and perhaps most important step along the way of development of persistence. Desire. You must have a strong sense of desire and self-reliance. I love that part. Self-reliance. That is what we fight for on a daily basis here at Alaska Matters Radio, is self-reliance. I read something earlier today, and I wanted to share it with you as well, from Robert Kiyosaki. He said, comfort kills ambition. And I thought that ties in beautifully to the self-reliance aspect of the Think and Grow Rich prescription for persistence. Ambition is killed by comfort. You must remain uncomfortable to a certain extent while you're pursuing your dreams. Thirdly, would be definiteness of plans. You've got to have plans, and then followed by accurate knowledge. It means you have to educate yourself and continually educate yourself. Lifelong learning. Cooperation. You've got to have sympathy and understanding and gain cooperation from others. That's the mastermind principle. When two or more people gather together, get out of the way, because that idea is going to move forward. Unfortunately, sometimes it's aimed in the wrong direction, back to your principle and your purpose. Willpower. That's one of the chief mainstays of persistence, is willpower. Trust me, I know. I've tested that over the last year and a half, coming up on 2 years of being vegan. I'm using air quotes, vegan, because as you know, I've changed some of my dietary habits to include some fish. And the other day, I'll admit to you right here, some lamb kebabs took advantage of me. Oh, I know. Oh, it was awful. But if you were invited to my father's barbecue, you would understand what I'm talking about. These lamb kebabs were just, it was divine. That's all I can say. And habit. Finally, habit. Persistence is the direct result of habit. It's just absolutely crucial. It's absolutely important. What'd you say? What's that smell? That's right. Whose fault is it anyway? So whose fault is it, right? You wake up one morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, you hear water rushing, you hear and you smell something funky. And you wonder what's going on. It can't be true, but this dream turns into a nightmare. And in fact, your home has become a 3-bedroom, 2-bath septic tank connected to the city of Homer's sewerage system. Now, when we talk about this, I think it's important to note that there is no blame assigned to an individual here. I'm not asking for an individual to be held responsible. I'm not asking for anyone at the Public Works. I'm not asking for anyone at City Hall to be held individually responsible for the sewerage that has ended up in these folks' home. But by the way, it's not the homeowner's fault. It's not God's fault, and it's not the homeowner's fault. It's just a reminder for anybody right now connected to the Homer City Sewer. You've got to be ever so careful, because your homeowner's policy is probably not going to cover you. And you know for darn sure City of Homer is not going to cover you. They've made it abundantly clear. It ain't their fault. And that's wrong. I'm sorry, but that's the city's position. I've spoken to the mayor. We've heard from the city manager. You've heard from Ken Halpin. Ken Halpin is one of the homeowners, and he was told directly by the city manager sue us. What? I still am just flabbergasted. I can't understand the strategy. And I started to think, well, maybe the strategy, let's just play this out. Maybe the strategy is to get as many people involved in court as possible. Of course, all the while costing you and I a fortune, costing the homeowners a fortune. But the end strategy is that everybody's going to win when we go to court and truly the insurance company's on the hook. The city of Homer's insurance company is brought to bear. Maybe that's the strategy. So I was chatting with the mayor of Homer on Friday, and I outlined, I said, is this the strategy? Is this, obviously there's certain things that cannot be said now because this is in litigation. This is in litigation. But we now know what the strategy is. Why does the city of Homer feel so confident that they're going to win this case? Why has the city engaged against the homeowners with a high-powered attorney out of Anchorage, a group of attorneys out of Anchorage? Why? How would you feel so comfortable to do this unless you had a strategy? And the strategy is they did not have a check valve on their city sewerage system. They did not have a check valve. So the homeowners did not have a check valve when they connected to the city sewer. That's the strategy. As far as I'm concerned, as a strategy, that is weak. As a strategy, that is duplicitous. As a strategy, that is wrong, and it's a very dangerous precedent for you and I to set. Now, nobody's told me that's the strategy, but that's what I'm gathering. From information, from my own fact-finding, this is what I'm gathering is the strategy. Until told different, I'm going to run with that as a hypothetical strategy, that homeowners did not employ or engage or put in or install a check valve to prevent, a backflow preventer, whatever you want to call it. They didn't do it. Well, they weren't told to do it. They weren't recommended to do it. It wasn't a policy. It wasn't a zoning requirement. It wasn't something that was required when you connect to a city sewerage system. So do you need a check valve? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Who needs it and when and where and how you go about installing one, getting one, obtaining one, I don't know. But I'm telling you, it's a very, very dangerous precedent to set. And I really don't want, as we go forward with Take Back Our Town, I don't want these kinds of things to become the constant stumbling block. Oh, here he goes again, that blockhead. He just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. He needs to take a 6-week boot camp on being a citizen, on a good citizen. No, absolutely not. This is common sense, and this is doing the right thing, and this is leadership. There is no win. There is no victory in taking homeowners to court. There's absolutely none. There's none. It's time for Operation Take Back Our Town. Are you? Are you going to take it? Are you going to stand by and allow your neighbors to live with this? Are you? I just don't get it. I'm not. This is why I called for a meeting with the mayor. And I said, Mayor Wyeth, I respect and appreciate what you do, but I've got to air this. And it really wasn't even the full intent of my meeting with the mayor, was to discuss the city sewerage, but it came up. And I am standing here today before you and everyone else, and I am bearing my heart and soul, and I'm saying to you, I don't want my residents, my neighbors, my friends, our family members, our community members to have to go to court to defend against what happened to them. They didn't do it. It's happening to them. And I'm asking you, will you stand with your neighbors? Will you stand with Ken Halpin? Will you say to Ken, we've got your back, brother, and we're not going to allow you to have to spend good money after bad. You've already had to take it on yourself to begin to make this home habitable again. Now you've got to go out and hire an attorney, and no guarantees you're going to get any of these costs back. And it's for a problem you didn't cause, you didn't ask for, and you didn't create. It absolutely makes me sick. Honest to God, it makes me sick to my stomach to think that there's a group, there's a body of elected people, and there's an administrator, a city manager that would dare tell you it's your fault. Please call the mayor. Email Mayor Wyeth. Email your city council folk and tell them that you want them to do what is right. Do what is right. This is not an emotional ploy. Like, Chris, you're being emotional. You're wearing your heart on your shirt sleeve. No, this is doing what's right. This is called leadership. Sometimes you have to do what is right, even in the face of difficulty. And it would be difficult to say, all right, we screwed up. Now, we is not you, is not an individual. I'm not blaming an individual. I'm not saying, well, if this guy or this gal had acted differently within the city as an employee, then this wouldn't have happened. That's not my point. My point is that there was a manhole that was in a bad location. This was a problem waiting to happen. It was too low. It was in the wrong location, and creeks do migrate. And a creek, a drainage, had migrated around and encompassed this manhole, and during a flood, overtook the manhole. I'm not saying that was someone's fault. But now, guess what? That manhole is being resealed and raised up out of the creek. Raised up. Why? Is it something to do with God? No. It is not God's fault. It is not Ken Halpin's fault. It is not the other homeowner's fault on Maddox. It's just the way it is. Are you willing to take responsibility for that as a community? And will you stand with your neighbor? That's the question before you today. You want contact information? Go to our website, adventurealaskaradio.com. The most recent blog post contains a link to the city's webpage that's got everybody's contact information there. Check valve or no check valve, I say checkmate. Checkmate, brothers. We've got your back, sisters. We've got your back. We're going to be there for you. And come thick or thin, this is how a community operates together. When you talk about core values, this is it. This is a core value that we will not let a city sewerage system overtake your home and abandon you. Not even just abandon you, worse yet, take you to court or suggest you take us to court. We won't do it. We'll stand with you. Go to our website, adventurealaskaradio.com. Every single phone number, email address is there for your council and mayor. Ask them to do the right thing. And you and I really can take back our town. More to come here on Alaska Matters Radio.
Good night. Up the street beside the red neon light, that's where I met my baby.
You're listening to Alaska Matters Radio. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. It's time for our Blackwater Bend Espresso Alaskan Mindbender. Not your average drip, a Blackwater Bend Espresso. When good coffee won't do, get gourmet with Blackwater Bend Espresso. You know, you think you're tough enough for the shock coffee? You should try it. Shock coffee. I had it one time out there. It's pretty good. I mean, it's an eye-opener. If you've got to take a long drive or something, ask for the shock coffee. It'll wake you up. I could come up with another couple of names for it, but I don't think I will. Crank up the radio, rip off the knob, and let's you and I go out to Blackwater Bend right now. They're halfway between Homer and Anchor Point. Blackwater Bend Espresso. All right, here's your question, and what should I do? Let me set this up first by playing this.
If you got a doctor now, you got a medical professional you want, you get to keep that. If you have an insurance program or a health care policy you want, the idea is to make sure you keep it, that you can keep who you want, that we keep that patient-doctor relationship very strong.
That was Senator Mark Begich in 2009 on the sales trail, if you will, selling Obamacare, selling Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. So here's your question. After you've heard that, that's your senator, right? What did he say again?
If you got a doctor now, you got a medical professional you want, you get to keep that. If you have an insurance program or a health care policy you want, the idea is to make sure you keep it.
Okay, so you keep it. According to the Anchorage Daily News, as of November 1st of this year, how many Alaskans have received cancellation notices from Blue Cross Blue Shield? A, over 5,000, B, less than 500, or C, not at all, you racist hate-monger. Over 5,000, less than 500, or C, none at all, you racist hate-monger. Send your name right now, 299-7653, name and answer. Text me right now. Is it over 5,000, less than 5,000, or none at all, because we just like to hate?
That you can keep who you want, that we keep that patient-doctor relationship very strong.
All right. Now, there's something else that I wanted to share with you. And while you're answering the question, by the way, the number again, 299-7653, 299-7653. How many people have already been kicked off Blue Cross Blue Shield? So answer now. The answers are coming in, but I want you to be able to enter to win coffee card for Blackwater Ben. Don't be bashful while we listen to another story production.
What this Congress is trying to do with health reform bill isn't something of an exercise of policy wonks and think tanks.
Small businesses have no idea what to do, what to expect.
When it comes right down to it, what we're trying to do is bring fairness and hope to the American people.
They don't know what affordability rules are. They don't know when penalties may apply. They just don't know. People are going to be really confused. I tell you, I just see a huge train wreck coming down. You and I have discussed this many times, and I don't see any results yet. I just see a huge train wreck.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
I just see a huge train wreck.
There you go. Those are your elected officials. That's the best and the brightest. That's the best America can do, folks. That's the best Alaska can do. That was your Senator Mark Begich, along with Max Baucus and, of course, the ever infamous Nancy Pelosi, then Speaker of the House. Pass it so you can find out. That's one of the things I said to the staffer at Mark Begich's office. And I said, did the good senator read the bill and understand it, or did he simply just do what Nancy said, and that's pass it so we can all find out what's in it? So it's hard to say. Hard to say. Well, the answer coming back from the staffer was that it's not something that you know. He didn't answer the question. Let me put it that way. He didn't answer the question. Now, what he did defend, tooth and nail, he absolutely defended, tooth and nail, that this was a good thing for the country because for decades, the cost of health care has been rising. And he's actually got statistics, and I'm not going to go out and try to prove a negative, but he's got statistics that he was trying to cite had I not been speaking over him. And that was saying, excuse me, I called you to listen to me, not to listen to you. So please allow me to speak my mind so you can relate to the senator. And that's costs have never risen so slowly since the passage of Obamacare. And that's why I was basically forced off of my existing plan. Literally, every time Tiffany and I turned around, we were opening our bill from our health care provider, and there was a new increase. There was absolutely a new increase. I'm like, what is going on? So we finally called, and it was, who was it? Mega Life and Health through the NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business People. So we'd been with them for 12 years, 14 years. Loved them. They're fantastic. Never had a problem with them. Tiffany needed a surgery one time. Went through them. It was great. It's fantastic. Listen to this. My brother works for a major global corporation. Major. Big time. This is a big company, one of the top 100 companies in the country. He's got platinum insurance. It's a beautiful policy. His wife had to have a surgery here not long ago, a couple years ago. The total tab was about $500,000. Their insurance covered all but a couple $1,000s. And I'm not defending the cost of performing the surgery. I'm not defending the cost of an aspirin at, $1,800 for the patient. I'm not defending that. What I'm saying is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Joe Miller, who's restoring liberty, attempting to restore liberty. That's his website, in fact, www.restoringliberty.us. Joe Miller is also a candidate for Mark Begich's current seat in the U.S. Senate. And we'll also play, I've dug something up from Milton Friedman, whom I respect a great deal, the author of Free to Choose, Nobel Prize-winning economist. He spoke many times of national health care. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. He spoke of this many, many times. This is a clip that we'll play from the 70s. It was in a Q&A. He was responding to somebody who said, what about nationalized health care? What's the problem with it? What's the problem with it? We've also got an opportunity coming up. I want to talk to you about some local news, some statewide news, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to go to Old Town Steakhouse, AJ's Old Town Steakhouse and Tavern, for free. That's right. Adrian's dropped off a whole batch of gift cards just for you, and I want to give one of them away to you today. Maybe two. I don't know. I'm feeling extremely generous. Also, we've got an update from the Anchor Point Natural Foods and a whole lot more. Plus, I'll ask the question one more time just to give you an opportunity to weigh in. How many people have been dropped from Blue Cross Blue Shield so far? Over 5,000, less than 500, or none at all, you racist hate monger. Text me now, 299-7653, 299-7653. We'll be back in just a little bit. We're going to connect up with U.S. Senate candidate Joe Miller. That and much more coming up on what my mom calls the greatest show on earth. I'm Chris Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. David Webb is your engineer and broadcast professional, back up at the mothership of KGTL, AM 620 and FM 100. Miss any portion of this program, it's no problem. Go to our website, AdventureAlaskaRadio.com, AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. First full half hour will be there in addition to this half hour of the show. Joining me in just a moment is Mr. Joe Miller, publisher of Restoring Liberty, which, by the way, great website. You should go there often, restoringliberty.us is the web address. And what I'd asked Mr. Miller to talk about today was to address some of the concerns that many Alaskans have, many Americans have, about Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. And so just a little background, if you missed the first portion of the program, I called Senator Begich's office this morning. And, Joe, in doing so, I didn't expect to get real answers, but this aide, Joe, was spinning so fast on the Affordable Care Act, I honestly thought he was going to turn into butter. I feared for his safety. Are you surprised, Joe Miller, that Senator Begich is not backing away from Obamacare? He's actually defending it?
Well, what else is he going to do? I mean, this we call it Obamacare, of course. It's a political noose around his neck, and he's got to spin it, otherwise he's going down. Of course, Alaskans are smarter than that, and especially the Alaskans that are directly and adversely impacted by, his misstatements or falsehoods on this whole thing. I mean, we know now, there's an article that came out this week that over 5,000 Alaskans are going to lose their insurance because of Obamacare. The program that Mark Begich's 60th vote caused to go into effect. And that's dramatic and adverse. And it's not just that, but it's also the premium increases. It's the fact that we're going to have, I think, real shortages in professional health care providers as a result of this. And it just gets worse and worse.
Oh, absolutely. And you say, what else is he going to do? And I just can't help but wonder out loud, okay, you say, I admit I didn't understand the full ramifications and impacts. And I can't help but wonder, though, Joe, if there aren't some other tie-ins to this that he's not able to do that. And I don't want to conjecture or have a bunch of conspiracy coming out of my mouth, but I'm saying, why not take advantage of the opportunity to say, hey, the president misspoke, lied, whatever word you want to use. I bought into that, and I was wrong.
Well, I think because he is just simply a surrogate for the president. I mean, he really is. I mean, he votes with the president over 90% of the time. And if you listen to what he said at that town hall meeting a couple of years ago about Obamacare and how, Alaskans are going to be able to continue with their doctor, continue with their health plan, if they so choose. It was just simply parroting what the president had said. And so what he's doing now is the same. He's just parroting what the president is saying. And, it's pretty pathetic because the president's out there lying about the fact that he never said that, you aren't going to lose your doctor, you aren't going to lose your health care. But how many dozens of times have we heard that? We've got the videos where he said it repeatedly, and now he's walking away from it. And Begich, if he was really smart about this, would start creating some real separation between him and the president, but instead he can't help himself.
Oh, my God. They're going closer and closer. According to this aide that I spoke to at Senator Begich's office this morning, he mentioned to me, Joe, at one point he said it's a penalty, it's a fine, and then he said it's a fee. And I corrected him each time and said, you mean tax? And he said, well, okay, fine, a tax. And I said, no, words matter. This was sold as a fine and then pled before the Supreme Court as a tax. And I'm sick of these people playing these word games. And what they're doing, Joe, is I'm afraid they're going to trample on our freedoms, on our liberty, and on overall our health. And it's wrong.
Well, and this is more than just a little insurance inconvenience. This is a huge problem. On Hannity last night, they were suggesting that over 100 million Americans could actually be directly and adversely impacted with loss of health care coverage. And not to mention, again, the shortage of professionals, healthcare professionals as a result of this. It is going to have a dramatic and direct impact to most Americans and every American with respect to those that they know. And it is a major, major effort to assert additional government control. This is just an absolute catastrophe. A train wreck doesn't even do it justice.
Right.
Catastrophic.
Yeah, to quote Max Bacchus, I just see a huge train wreck coming. Oh man, I fear for where our country's headed if we don't wake up. And I know 40,000 Alaskans are possibly going to be eligible for an expanded version of Medicaid if Governor Parnell doesn't get the backing and support of the Alaskans who say, we support what you're saying. Please do not expand Medicaid in Alaska. Joe, are you with me on that? We don't need to expand the Medicaid program?
Well, I need to look at that. I mean, I'm not, to be honest with you, I haven't fully evaluated that at this point in time, but I can tell you that from my perspective, the federal government and its involvement in our private affairs is far too expansive. And, you know, what we've done with Obamacare and the way that we've approached it, you know, and this is the problem. The issue, Chris, is that government has incrementally increased its scope and control. Right. And every time that one of these things come up, like Obamacare, like Medicaid expansion, those are things that we say, oh, well, the government's already involved there, no big deal. But then you get something like Obamacare, which, of course, all of this stuff has constitutional question. I mean, you've got enumerated powers. Show me where the government at the federal level has the right to do this. But, you know, it doesn't create the type of opposition that we need. And this is what really aggravates me. I mean, you look at the people, the patriots that stood up against this whole thing a few weeks ago when they had the opportunity to shut it down, and they got demonized by everybody. They got demonized by the media. They got demonized, especially by the left. But even the rhinos demonize these folks that try to say, look, we're headed for this ultimate catastrophe that's going to, you know, take up 20% of the U.S. economy. It's going to take away the best healthcare system in the world. It's going to create death panels. And now we're starting to see it. I mean, look at what we've learned just over the last several weeks with how bad this program is. I think these people are going to be regarded as heroes because they took that stand. And let's hope somebody has the backbone yet again. You know, maybe the next debt ceiling debate that we have in January. I don't know where it's going to be, but the line has got to be drawn in the sand, and we got to say no more.
Joe, is it a waste of time, and this is probably a bad way to phrase this question, but let me ask it a different way. For Alaskans that are concerned about the future of health care in this country, what's the answer? Should they be calling the Senator Begich's office? Should they be ringing the phone at Senator Lisa Murkowski's office and calling Congressman Don Young? What should we do to express our feelings of outrage towards this law?
You know, that's a good question, Chris. You know, when you look at what Begich has done, when you look at what our senior senator has done, it doesn't reflect the opinions of the state. Is it because they haven't gotten enough calls? I don't know. I mean, I think what we've got to do is we've got to fund those candidates that are out that are saying enough is enough. And you can't just base it upon saying either. I mean, you got to look and see, are they part of the ruling class? Are they part of this permanent political class that's out there expanding the size and scope of government? Or they're out there, you know, patriots that really have nothing to lose, that want to get the country back in line? I think people need to dedicate funding to those efforts so that we can get our country back. Because if we don't, we aren't going to have enough time. I think we ought to call them. Don't get me wrong. I think we ought to confront their staff and say, look, you don't reflect the will and the opinion of the Alaskan people, and what you're doing is hurting our state. But I think fundamentally what we've got to do, we've got to get behind those candidates that really want to change this system, the one that is just killing the country and is going to create bankruptcy in our state and take away our health care choices and the coverage that in this country I think we've been very lucky to have up until now.
All right. Joe Miller, publisher, restoringliberty.us, and U.S. Senate candidate. Thank you very much for your time today, Joe, and your wise insights.
Thanks, Chris. Enjoyed it, as always.
You bet you. Have a great day. Don't you go anywhere. I've got the answer to your Blackwater Bend Alaskan Mindbender trivia coming up here on Alaska Matters Radio.
Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Were you in the yard with your wife and children, or working on some stage in L.A.? Did you stand there in shock at the sight of that black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor, or did you just sit down and cry? Did you weep for the children who lost their dear loved ones, pray for the ones who don't know? Did you rejoice for the people who walked from the rubble and sob for the ones left below?
Okay, I'm looking around here. I've got a desk full of stuff. Man, where do I go? Listen, I want to remind you, as we talk about restoring liberty, as we talk about taking personal responsibility, it's what I'm asking of the city of Homer. right? I'm just asking for the city of Homer to take personal responsibility. I'm asking for Senator Mark Begich to take personal responsibility. Joe asked a good question, Joe Miller, my guest previously. What else is he going to do? What else is Senator Barack Obama, Senator Begich, I get them confused, Senator Begich going to do? What else is he going to do? He's going to stand up. If he's a man of character, he's going to stand up and say, I made a mistake. Why not? What's wrong with admitting you made a mistake and moving on? What's wrong with the city of Homer saying to Ken Halpin and the other homeowners, I'm sorry? You know, they said they're sorry to the tenants and wrote a check, $3,500 a piece to the tenant. Homeowners, bupkis. I'm not suggesting and never have suggested that the tenants that occupied these turd vessels should have gotten nothing. No, I'm glad they got checks for $3,500. I'm glad of it. What I'm frustrated is that the homeowners are then left to scramble on their own, and worse yet, taken to court, or at least left only one avenue, and that's to go to court. And you know it's going to cost you and I exponentially more. Of course it is. How could it not? I'm asking you to take personal responsibility, and that includes your own health and your community. And that empty bowl soup luncheon is coming up, and it's a benefit that will affect you, possibly affect your neighbors. Homer Community Food Pantry on the 15th of November from 11 to 2 has the Empty Bowls Soup Luncheon. It's a fundraiser. Soup and bread, $10. You get a bowl if you pay $25. You get to keep the bowl. Come on. Come hungry, come often. $3.99/2007, $3.99/2007. These are awesome potters. Listen to the potters that have donated. Donated. That's the key. Donated their time, their artistry, and their products. Marie Hertigan, Lisa Wood, Eric Larson, Annette Bellamy, Anna Iredale, Cynthia Morelli, Jean Steele, Ruby Haig. These are world-class potters. You're going to get one of their bowls, $25 plus soup and bread. You're going to feel awesome about it. That's Friday, November 15th, Homer United Methodist Church. Charity comes from the heart, and it can start right there. Anchor Point Natural Foods makes this portion of the program possible. Be sure to like Anchor Point Natural Foods on Facebook. My dad asks me all the time, why is that important? Why do businesses, he doesn't ask me all the time, he just sits around, Chris, how come? But he asked in the past, what's the big deal about liking someone on Facebook? Why do businesses do that? Here's exactly the perfect reason why. If you go to Facebook and like Anchor Point Natural Foods, you're going to get daily updates on what's just arrived. For example, let me tear this from the wire. We are now carrying local, organic, non-GMO chicken eggs. The eggs come from the hens that are fed a proprietary organic diet, including extra omega-3, which results in over 200 mcgs of omega-3 in each large brown egg. These fresh eggs have also got higher levels of vitamin D than commercially produced eggs. They are sold dozen and half dozen. Go now, 345 Sterling Highway, Anchor Point Natural Foods. They're next door to the N-Star offices, 399-7900, or find them on Facebook, Anchor Point Natural Foods. Speaking of anchor, let's anchor ourselves in the truth. And don't worry, I haven't forgot. We've got our Alaskan Mindbender out there. Joe Miller actually answered the question. It's over 5,000. Over 5,000 people have lost coverage, been notified they'll be canceled. The argument then becomes, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? Yeah, but they've been offered another policy. See, they've been offered at what cost? And a 65-year-old, well, it's back below Medicare age, a 60-year-old woman, 58-year-old woman is going to have to carry maternity coverage. So is a single guy age 20. Maternity, this is crazy. It's craziness, crazy. We'll find the winner in a moment. Anchored in the Truth, sponsored by the Anchor River Inn, your one-stop shop in Anchor Point, from great family-style food overlooking the Anchor River, gifts, groceries, lodging. Anchor River Inn, serving you with gratitude for more than 50 years. Check out their Anchor River Cam, anchorriverin.com. 2 N's in in, those of you in Nikiski. Soon we'll be broadcasting into Nikiski, this very program, and I'll have to watch my step. AnchorRiverIn.com. All right, the military purge surge continues. Another general fired. President Obama set out in 2008 to fundamentally transform America. leaving no room to doubt his motives. 9 top military commanders and generals have already been fired so far this year. That's up to 200 top commanders that have been removed over the last 5 years of the Obama administration. But don't worry, if you like your health plan, you get to keep your health plan. I mean, if you like your superpower status, you'll get to keep your, I'll just shut up and eat your weevilled rice, number 4231. Old school budget shortfalls. This is tough. The Anchorage School District's facing $23 million shortfall. Last year's gap, they made it up with $18 million in cuts. These are unfathomable numbers. $18 million cut from the budget and $7 million used up out of the Anchorage School District reserves. According to the 24/7 Wall Street website, New York spent the 4th most amount per student. This is a per capita basis. New York spent the 4th most and received Education Weekly's 3rd best grade overall. Alaska, on the other hand, spent the 3rd most, so more than New York, among students, and was tied with Mississippi as the 4th worst state overall for education. Interactive portion of the program. Here's what I'd like. Your opinion for a solution. What is your solution to this, what can only be classified as an educational crisis? Should we be spending more money, less money? Is it a matter of school choice and voucher system? Are we doing something wrong? What would you suggest? Because Anchorage isn't alone in the potential shortfalls here. I mean, you know what we're facing with the unfunded liability of retirement, etc. Text your answer right now, 299-7653. This is for your AJ's Old Town Steakhouse gift card. Send me your solution to the school crises. What's going on with education in Alaska? 299-7653. It can be a real simple solution. You don't need to make it too wordy. Do you have an idea? Spend more, spend less, vouchers, school choice. What's the solution according to you? Because you really do matter. In a related story, the median income in Mississippi, $36,000. That's 50th. That's the 7 more, and they'd be at the bottom because there's 57 states. So they're 50th. $36,000, the median income in Mississippi, whereas in Alaska, the median income is $67,000. Big difference there. It's a big difference. Send me your solution. What do you think about the schools? Should we spend more? I mean, is homeschooling the answer? What's the answer to solving this educational crisis? 299-7653. I want to send you down to Old Town Steakhouse, AJ's Old Town Steakhouse and Tavern in Old Town Homer. Hey, we'll answer that question. We'll answer I've already answered the Blackwater Bend Mindbender question, but I'm going to tell you who's going out there for free, and I've got more local news for you coming up on Alaska Matters Radio.
Yeah, all around in my old town.
You're listening to the greatest show on earth. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. David Webb is truly the world's greatest engineer and absolute best broadcast producer this side of, I don't know, Dave Becker. I think contractually I'm obligated to say that. The Dave Becker's better than you, Dave Webb. It is shameless because Dave's given us a little extra time today. Thank you very much, Dave. You're not just a producer, you're a friend, and I appreciate that. On a somber note, and I appreciate, by the way, text messages are coming in as to how to fix the educational crisis in this state. It's probably nationwide, but what's your solution? Should Alaska be spending more money, less money, offering school choice, vouchers? What's the solution? 299-7653. 2 folks were found inside a cabin in the Wasilla area, dead due to gunshot wounds to the head. It appears that the 41-year-old man shot his 32-year-old girlfriend and then pulled the trigger on his own self. We're going into winter, and for some of your neighbors, this winter's been coming for a long time. Maybe they've been in winter for a long, long time. I'm asking you to be alert, be compassionate, and reach out to someone that you might think is in trouble. Follow your instincts, because you know what? Wouldn't you rather err on the side of compassion? That's what I suggest. Err on the side of compassion, because somebody you know might be going through something you don't even understand right now. So if you've got an instinct, reach out, talk to someone, take them to coffee, take them to lunch, do something nice for them, and you just never know what you can do and make a difference in somebody's life. Are you prepared? Did you hear about the mudslide? 16-foot tall mudslide roared down Bear Creek. Remember the Bear Creek, East End Road was shut right at Bear Creek here last week. 16-foot tall mudslide, according to Barrett Moe, manager of Lower Peninsula Power Sports on East End Road. We should bill them for that, by the way. Let's bill LPS. Let's bill Lower Peninsula Power Sports for this. Put that on the Arno account. The security camera apparently showed this 100-foot wide wall of trees and debris coming down the creek from behind their store. Lower Peninsula Power Sports on East End Road, carrying a full line of Yamaha supplies. And Narrow Canyon up the hill had just let go, Mo said, and the debris jammed up the culvert. It was a real mess. Here's my question for you. We're lucky that Kachemak Drive remained open. We're fortunate, I should say. But it's been blocked by mudslides in the past. How long could you survive without going to the store? If you had to live at home, how long could you survive going forward without going home? How long could you? Now, here's another question. How long could you survive in your car without going to town? Without being able to get somewhere? If you were stuck between waypoints, if you got stuck in your car, how long could you survive? Let's say you're headed to Anchorage or Soldotna and you get stuck. Something happens. It's a tragedy. It is a needless tragedy. It's avoidable if you prepare. Are you prepared? Alaskan Mindbender. Let me go and pick a couple of winners here before we leave. We are absolutely running very short on time. Let's see here. Norm says he's never heard of a check valve for the sewer, but the city does warn people ahead of time when cleaning the mains, asking them to leave their toilet seats down. Okay, so it must mean that most people don't have check valves. Let's see here. All right, we've got no magic bullet. This is in respect to the school question. No magic bullet. Respect teachers. Value education. Change cultural norms and values. Starts at home. Excellent. I like that. I like all the ideas. Because you understand I have limited time, I have a very limited amount of time left here. This person, and you know who you are, you're going to AJ's Old Town Steakhouse. That's right. Thank you very much. Let's see here. One more. I want to read this one, too. Go back to basic schooling, reading, writing, arithmetic. Willie, you nailed the head on, hit the nail on the head. That's back to basics. I think that's very, very important. And putting those fundamentals, the 4 R's, putting those first place, I think that's a grand and great idea. And you know what, Willie? I'm going to send you to the Pho and Thigh. I like to call it Thigh, but it's actually Thai. I'm sending you to the Thai restaurant. So I'll text you. Don't worry. I'll tell you how to get there. Great. Okay, thank you. Now, we go to the winners. Rhonda and Michelle. You're both winners to the Blackwater Bend Espresso Mind Bender. Got to take care of all this business before we wrap up, see. So Rhonda and Michelle, thank you very much. You'll have coffee cards waiting for you out of Blackwater Bend Espresso. You knew that over 5,000 people, according to the Anchorage Daily News, Blue Cross Blue Shield's already canceled over 5,000 insured people. It's, man, I knew this was going to be bad. I think a lot of us did. I think a lot of us knew this was going to be bad. Did we know how bad it was going to be? Did we know how bad it was going to be? Let's talk a little bit about home rule. Ken Kastner, as I've told you before, started the process to decide whether Homer wants to become a home rule city or not, or remain general law. Now, this comes to you from the Homer News, asked by Mayor Beth Wyeth for his thoughts on making a charter or constitution as opposed to the current form of city government. Kastner said, I think everybody knows in the United States there is generally a lot of distrust in government. There's not much I can do with what's going on in the U.S. Congress or about the actions of state government in Juneau, but there's something I can do locally. Right on, Ken. Right on. Get vocal and act local. This has been a plank of our Occupy Prosperity movement for years now, at least 2 years. We've been saying, get vocal and act local, the new front lines in your backyard. That's exactly the case. Ken's nailed it on the head. Now, are you going to get behind home rule? Well, you'll have to just wait and see. Here's what I suggest. Whether or not you even know whether home rule is a good idea or not, listen to Ken, listen to Ginny Espenshade, listen to the people that are proposing this idea, and make your own mind up. But I say give it a whirl. Sign the petition. Let's have the conversation. Let's have the larger conversation. I may, as time goes on, I may weigh in differently. For now, what I'm telling you is, let's have the conversation. Can it get any worse? Can it get any worse? Consider, last week I was a little bit tongue-in-cheek talking about, imagine wild-eyed, crazy-haired home rulers applying a USAD on top of you, a utility special assessment district over every single parcel in all of Homer to build out a private infrastructure of a privately owned company like, NSTAR. Dun, 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 dun. Well, that's exactly what's happened, and we've got it under our own rule of law right now without doing anything. Councilman Bo Burgess warned, well, you got to be careful. You're going to give the city a lot more power, potentially. Okay, for arbitrary taxes, let's take on the water bills. I've got one here. Or did I already give it back to John? No, I don't think I have it. But I've got, oh, yeah, I do. Here, let me get it. Okay, I've got a water bill right here. This is a customer that we manage his property for him. His sewer charge, this is just a customer charge, is $150. That's just a customer charge for the connectivity of water. Okay, that's water. Sewer, $60. Excuse me, $120. I'm screwing this all up. $270 in just fees to be connected, just for connectivity, because he's got 6 units. It was $45. It's now $270 every single month. That drives into value. That drives into profitability. That drives into his net operating income, which depletes its actual fair market value, which eventually will deplete its actual taxable assessed value. It's cutting our own throats, and it's throwing the property owner and then the tenants right under the bus, and it's absolutely underneath what we already have, general law. So you tell me, should we take a chance, write a constitution, and protect each other and protect the individual within this great community? Or shall we just leave it up to council's whim and will, depending on what the manager tells them and when and how? That's what I say. I say, you know what, let's have a conversation. Let's write our own constitution. Let's do what we think is right, because right now, I'm afraid it's not being done. I'm afraid that to tell the homeowners, sue us, this is God's fault, that's not right. It's absolutely not right. You know what I'd like to see? Is it time to put a ballot proposition out there for the non-prepared foods tax and make that thing go away? What do you think? Tune in tomorrow. Radio Realty on KPEN 102 FM. I'm Chris Story. Have a great day.
We got tall old trees where we live.